Welcome back to the One Foot In podcast. I'm Ohana, he's Winn, and wow, do we have an episode. Now, let's get it out of the way, off the bat. Obviously, there was no episode on Friday.
It's not our fault.
It's
not our fault. You know what? Where are my glasses?
Where's your... Throw on the glasses. You know, there was a, what you call a natural disaster, a weather phenomenon. There was a hurricane. I'm sure you've heard Hurricane Helene.
Let's talk about the game of the week. Dude, maybe an instant classic.
No, 100% an instant classic.
Dude, I'm putting these on. I can't
throw
crying.
them on. Definitely an instant classic, but you wouldn't have known it if you watched until halftime, if you went to bed or retired or lost power somehow at halftime. But definitely not an instant classic then when it was 30-7. But by the end of it, I mean, I don't think how you could argue it's not an instant classic. 41-34, Alabama defeats Georgia. Alabama now the number one team in the AP poll. Shout out to them. And yeah, I mean, this game was crazy. I don't know.
What a game, dude. Like, what a weird game as well. Like, I feel like I say weird a lot. Oh, sniffling in the camera. Sniffling in the thing. Okay, but anyways, like, Alabama comes out and you're like, oh, they're just steamrolling Georgia right now. Like, what is going on? What is going on? First quarter, 21-0. Second quarter, Georgia tries a little bit, but then it's, 7-9 in the second quarter. So, I mean, at that point, it is 30-7 in the halftime, and you're like, this game is wrapped up. And then all of a sudden, Georgia's got the lead in the fourth quarter in Bryant-Denny Stadium in Alabama, and you're just like, what is going on right now? Alabama pulled it off, and why did they pull it off? Why?
Let me tell you about, and we gave him a shout out on last week's episode, 17-year-old Ryan Williams, who makes one of the all-time great plays I've ever seen, all-time great athletic, feats, performances I've ever seen in my life. He goes up and spin gets it or what catches the ball. And this is the first play of the drive after Georgia scored the touchdown to go up 34-33. Ryan Williams was, again, a 17-year-old true freshman in the biggest moment of his life up to this point
100%.
in football. He's being guarded, and Jalen Milroe throws it up to him, and he jumps. He leaps out of his, he leaps into the air and spins and grabs it with body control, and that alone is insane. And then he lands, and he's like covered, basically bracketed by two different defenders, like parentheses by two different defenders, and he hits a spin move, hezzy, and then he's just past all of them, and he runs to the end zone. It's a touchdown, and it's like, what just happened? In one play, the game goes from, wow, Georgia has all the momentum in this half. They're just dominating. Alabama has only gotten a field goal this entire half after putting up insane domination in the first half. And then Ryan Williams is apparently the great eraser, and he just completely tears them apart and rips their heart out, I guess. I mean, they had a chance, obviously, to score after that. They were down 7 because Alabama got the 2-point conversion. And, they drive down, but then Carson Beck throws a pick in the end zone. Shout out Carson Beck. But, yeah, Ryan Williams, wow.
You look at the Milroe stat line, and you're like, hey, it's incredible. I mean, 374 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns, and then running. He was their leading rusher, 16 carries for 117 yards. Jalen Milroe, in my opinion, won Alabama this game. But on top of that, you just mentioned him. Carson Beck lost Georgia that game.
Definitely in the first half.
Definitely in the first half. Like, 3 picks in costly time periods and a fumble. Like,
yeah.
Look, 439 yards through the air, like, impressive as hell. 3 touchdowns, impressive as hell. But you can, like, in a game of this high caliber, I mean, in a top 5 matchup game like that, on the road, you just cannot turn the ball over like that. You just can't. And I thought that Georgia in the first half was just oddly flat. And, that second half was good. I bet Kirby gave him a great speech. But again, like you said, like that turnover and the turnovers by Beck in general were just honestly, like, kind of surprising. Like, I was surprised to see Beck be doing that. Like, he's not a new quarterback. If he's a young quarterback, I get it. But, like, in moments like that, I mean, and you also saw him, too. He would throw a pick and he would walk to the sideline with, just, like, almost like a blank stare on his face. Just like, damn. That sucked. And yeah, it did suck because, I mean, that was a big game. I mean, I still think that both of those teams are going to find a way to the playoff. I think Georgia will bounce back. But, like, that's a tough one.
I mean, yeah, like, you talked about the blank stare on Beck's face. It feels like Georgia as a program just doesn't – I mean, their only 2 losses we're seniors in college. The only 2 losses of Georgia that Georgia's had in our college careers have both been to Bama the past 2 years.
Crazy.
And it just feels like they're intimidated by the presence. It's kind of like what happens to teams when they play the Chiefs in the NFL. kind of fall apart. Except for Georgia, it's Bama specific, and yeah, it's insane. It's Beck, like, he lost himself millions of dollars in one night, which is kind of
What do you mean?
I mean, he's like not gonna be the number one pick in the draft.
Yeah.
Is he even gonna be? I don't think he's a first round quarterback. Now, does he get drafted in the first round? Maybe. We know how quarterbacks is. Quarterbacks go.
Should be.
He definitely shouldn't be. He's not a first round talent, and that's a tough game. And Georgia, so that's obviously brutal for him. You know, financially tough one. But for Georgia as a program, it's like, I don't know. It feels so different from what it felt like 2 years ago when they were, you know, wrapping up their second national championship in a row, where it felt like, wow, this team is this team going to be the next Bama for the next, or, you know, the next dynasty these next few years. Now it's like, okay, you know, they lose to Bama in the SEC championship last year and then don't make the playoff. They lose to Bama in the regular season this year. Now they'll make the playoff because it's 12-team playoff, but, you know, they barely beat Kentucky, who we'll get to in a bit, by the way. And it's like, you know, is Georgia ever going to be that dynasty that it felt like they were on a fast track to becoming? I don't think they are. So
You think the wheels are coming off a little bit?
No.
Maybe not this season, but in general.
I think they'll always be a good program. Like, I think they'll still be. I think they've established themselves enough to the point where they're going to keep getting high level talent. Excuse me, and, you know, maintain their standing atop as one of the premier programs. But they're not just going to run through teams. They're not going to. It's not going to be a foregone conclusion anymore that, oh, Georgia's going to be a national champion. Like, no, we both think Texas is going to be that this year, and most people don't think Georgia's going to win.
So. I mean, and I agree with you. I think that Georgia will still, like I said, they'll find their way into the playoff. Yeah. But this game, and we're going to touch on this in the rundown coming up, but, like, my playoff bracket as a whole is just cooked. It's out the window. It's in the furnace in the back in ashes, because now I look at Alabama's schedule, and I think that they have. I mean, yeah. Alabama they play at Tennessee. Okay.
That's going to be a great game.
But they play against Missouri, who I don't have any more confidence in.
No, after last, yeah.
And then they go to Oklahoma. Or no, they go to LSU, which I think Bama's going to win that game. Then they play Mercer, and then they go to Oklahoma, and I think Bama's going to win that game too pretty handedly. I mean, Oklahoma barely beat Auburn. They shouldn't have beat Auburn. But and then they finish with Auburn, who sucks. So it's funny because I didn't even have Bama making the playoff at the beginning of the season, because I thought that they were going to lose to Georgia pretty bad. I thought they were going to drop to Tennessee, and I actually thought that they were going to drop that Missouri game. I still think that Tennessee game is on the line for them,
100%.
but I still think that that's something that they can pull out. Whereas you look at Georgia they still have to go to Texas, they still have to go to Oxford, and then they still have to play Tennessee too. I still think they're going to find a way to get some of those games done. Georgia won't be in the SEC playoff. Championship game. I don't think there's any chance. Big game.
Oh, 100%. Obviously. Yeah. I mean, I had Bama going to the playoff as my 9th seed, but yeah, I didn't expect them to win this game going into the season. And credit to Kalen DeBoer. He's filling Saban's shoes. I mean, you know, what is filling Saban's shoes? Obviously, you're going to have to fill those shoes. You're going to have to win national championships, and it's pretty impossible shoes to fill. But his first year coming in after a legend, the guy after the legend is always the toughest job in sports. 100%. You never want to be that guy. You want to be the guy after the guy, because generally the guys in Kalen DeBoer's position fall flat on their face and get fired. But no, so far, shout out to him. And yeah, you mentioned Jalen Milroe. His progression has been from where he was last year to what he is now. I'll just read off his stat line quickly. 27 for 33 passing for 374 yards, 2 touchdowns, threw a pick, whatever. Then we all know what he can do on the ground. He added 117 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. Like, that's a crazy weapon.
He's the complete package now. And like we've talked about in an earlier episode with modern college football quarterbacks needing the ability to be mobile, it's like, I mean, if you're a linebacker on the opposing side of the ball, trying to figure out Jalen Milroe has got to be a nightmare, because he can throw it over your head like it's nothing. His accuracy is so good. You saw it on his completion. He could take off in the pocket. He can extend plays. He can run an RPO. It's just so hard to bottle up a guy like that. He opens up that Alabama offense so well. And the beginning of the season we saw some hiccups with Bama, but when they had that offense really flowing in that first half, you were just like, oh wow, this could be a machine.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and that was a great game to watch. I'm glad Georgia didn't come back and win because I didn't think they deserved to, personally, and that would have kind of ticked me off. But this sets up an interesting
rest of the season.
Yeah, for sure.
The rest of the SEC will be, and Tennessee's kind of the looming, the lurking, like
they're the wild card.
Yeah, they're the wild card here because what if they beat Bama and then so and both these teams play Tennessee obviously still. So
yeah, if Tennessee beats one and not the other, it's gonna make things interesting for sure. So, and if Tennessee beats both,
then
what's going on? You know what I mean? And I'm not saying they don't have that capability. I mean, you don't know. I think we're right now at the point of the season where it's like we know a little bit, but
we don't know everything.
Not everything.
We'll get there though.
And it is college football. All right. I think we touched everything with that. Let's get into the rundown. All right, leading it off, we're going to talk about just what our brackets look like from the beginning of the season into now.
Yeah.
It ain't good.
Well, one specific game may have kind of fried both of us in terms of our conference champion, specifically in the Big 12 as Utah. If I'll say Arizona 23-10, just a disaster of a loss for both of us in terms of our predictions. And Utah now number 18 in the AP poll and not first in the Big 12. That honor belongs to the 5-0 undefeated BYU Cougars. Shout out,
baby.
And,
shout out Provo, Utah. Weirdest place I've ever been. Salt Lake City, weirdest place I've ever been, too. I went to some drive-thru, and some girl told me that all she eats is bread and cheese and lives in a basement. And I was like, I need to get the hell out of here.
Oh.
Anyways.
Wow. All right. Shout out, okay. Shout out Utah, I guess.
No, I
guess not
shout out Zion National Park, though.
Hey,
okay, wait, what are we talking about?
You know who needs
football?
a shout-out, at least from BYU fans? Isaac Wilson. I guess he was trying, and I don't know if he's trying to help out Big Brother Zach's alma mater or something, but not a great game. 20 for 40, 50% completion. That's terrible. 280 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions.
It was just bad. I mean, everybody's going to say, and me included, well, what if Cam Rising is in that game? What if he does this? What if he does that? Honestly, I watched that game. The whole kind of component of it was just kind of sloppy. I just don't think that they looked great in any aspect of that whole game.
Mm-mm.
But dude, there's something to say about Isaac Wilson being a true freshman and being 18 years old. And Arizona, that was my team that was going to be the Big 12 team that made it. And by the way, Arizona has a 100% win rate in the Big 12 even after getting thrashed by Kansas State. Tell me how that works. Hate it. But Arizona's not a great team at all. They're not a well-rounded team at all. They've shown that. They put up 23 points and won and you win a game. But I mean, true freshman quarterback Isaac Wilson, that totally just screwed up the Utah as our champions there. And I don't know. You take it away. It's a lot.
And I guess we dogged Isaac Wilson a bit, but it doesn't help and this stat blew me away, shocked me. So Utah had 84 yards on the ground in this game, season low of 3.8 yards per carry.
Terrible.
But within those 3.8 yards, there was an average of 2.88 yards after contact, which means that Utah in the running game averaged less than 1 yard on the ground before contact.
That's crazy.
Which is just not a way to help, like you said, an 18-year-old freshman quarterback.
100%. It's
not a way, and they get into scoring position multiple times, and the red zone execution is just a disaster. They can't find a way to end up scoring. So yeah, just an overall not good.
And the problem with Utah too is that just the style of their offense, especially like you said, when they're not running the ball well and they have an 18-year-old, they can't play comeback football. They take long possessions, they go long down the field, and like you said too, they can't score in the red zone. So when you have Arizona that's up 13-3, 16-3 at a point in the third quarter, the game is just over at this point. It's just over, and it was just a slow burn at that point. Yeah. I mean, good win for Arizona. I think that it hopefully gives them some form of a momentum, but I don't find a way that they make the playoff at all. And I think just as a whole, do you have anything more specifically about that game you want to talk about? Because that was just a weird, sloppy game. Yeah. Utah, not chill. Cam Rising, even if you come back, I'm kind of tired of you being around.
What? Yeah, that is.
What's going on with you?
That. Every week, it's
what's going on with you?
Cam Rising expected to play. Then he just doesn't play.
Then he just doesn't play.
What's going on?
Dude, come on.
Get on the field,
You're
bro.
50, bro.
Yeah,
just figure it out. Isn't he on like Medicaid or something? No, I'm kidding. But
Might be.
But like, let's just talk about the Big 12 as a whole, because I don't know what's going on with that.
In the Big
It's
12.
a dumpster fire of like, this team sucks this week. Oh, and now they're good again. This team sucks this week, and then now they're good again. Let me say this real quick. I said Oklahoma State sucked, and I was right.
Oh, they suck.
Kansas State looked horrible. Kansas State goes in and plays Oklahoma State, who sucks, and then Kansas State looks great.
Yeah.
Colorado loses terribly to Nebraska. I'm like, they're done. They should have lost to Baylor. And then they go into UCF, and they destroy UCF. Like,
who were 14 point
and now
favorites, by the way.
BYU is 5-0 and is like the favorite to win now, and then
Yeah.
the one beneath them is like Arizona. Like, it makes no sense. The Big 12 needs to figure it out.
No sense. So I mean, we wrote off Colorado completely. Now they're sitting in second in the conference. We were like, oh, Colorado disaster.
Yeah.
There's just no hope. Now they're just. I mean, they're 4-1. They're winning games. They're up here. Texas Tech is at 4-1, 2-0 in the conference. Like, I don't really know what's going on. Iowa State's undefeated.
Yeah.
Sure. Like, okay. I don't know. This conference right now is a mess, I guess. Like, it does not look good. But
it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. And, like, even, like, BYU when they were playing Baylor, like, Baylor almost came back on them, too.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, like, moving forward, things are going to get interesting because BYU plays Arizona next week. I'm sure we will definitely touch on that.
These teams will all play each other and things will shake out. But as of right now,
and then Arizona plays Colorado.
Yeah.
So, sorry, not Arizona. Sorry, Kansas State plays Colorado, and that's going to be. So after next week, we'll get, I think, a little bit more of an understanding of what these teams are, and then it was like, but man, it is. It's like
weird. The Wild West in the Big 12.
It is weird.
But hopefully, it makes for some exciting scenarios down the stretch. Which I guess is all we can really ask for. At the end of the day, I don't really care who wins the conference. Actually, I do because I want my picks to win. But whatever. Shout out to these teams for, I guess, mixing it up for us. I don't really know. I don't really know what to think of this conference right now.
Shout out Alan Bowman for sucking.
Yeah, Alan Bowman, get a job, bro. Like, it's over. It's so over.
It's so over.
It's so over.
All right, Big 12 is a mess.
Speaking of messes. Speaking of it's
as if there's not one in the SEC.
Yeah. Speaking of over, Ole Miss.
Ole
Miss. The Rebels.
Put these on. Tell them.
These are the Dion shades, kind of.
Come on.
Prime time.
Talk to them.
Ole Miss. We didn't have any lock of the week last week, obviously because of the hurricane, like we mentioned. But Ole Miss. This might be worse than a missed lock of the week. I had you go to the national championship game. I had you
the SEC champion.
I had
you
them
have
going,
them in the Natty.
I had them going to the national
my
championship
God.
game and losing, but whatever. I had you being the 7th seed. Yeah, I had them being an upsetting teams in the playoff. What in the world are you doing, Ole Miss? 17 points to Kentucky, 20-17 loss to Kentucky. By the way, there's multiple layers to how disgusted I am with this game, not just on the Ole Miss side, but on the Kentucky side. I'll touch that in a second, but Ole Miss. Are you frauds? I believed in you. I really believed in you. Lane, I guess he's trying to go to UF or something. I don't know. He's trying to get to Florida sooner than later. But what are we doing? We can only score 17 points. Your kicker, Micah Davis, we got to hit those, game-tying field goals. Like, what are we doing? That's a disaster. You allow Kentucky's first win in Oxford since 78. That's 1978. Highest-ranked road win since 1977. And a team coached by, a guy I declared a coward a few weeks ago for his disaster class decision against Georgia to punt when they should have just gone for it on 4th down to try to win the game. You let that guy beat you in this 20-17 in a game you should win. Now you might be screwed now. Let me pull up their schedule quickly because you have some big games coming up that, are you going to beat Georgia? I don't know. I don't know if you're going to beat Georgia. Are you going to beat South Carolina? I don't know because South Carolina murdered Kentucky 31-6.
Yeah.
Brock Vandegrift against South Carolina was 3 for 10 for 30 yards and an interception. Against you, he goes 18 for 28, 243 and a touchdown. Like, what are we doing here? Now you basically have to run the table to go 11-1. And I get actually, I'm looking at your schedule. It's not, I guess you could run the table.
They have a cakewalk.
They kind of have a cakewalk, except for the Georgia game, which
LSU we'll I think will give them problems too.
Yeah, LSU's LSU, I guess, and Oklahoma's I mean, if you struggle with Kentucky's defense,
Yeah.
Oklahoma's defense has something for you.
Yeah, for real.
You never know if DJ Lagway is going to put on a show against when you play Florida. Probably not, but
Those are the hate shades, dude.
these are the hate shades.
Yeah, that's what those are.
I feel the hate.
Yeah, just anger.
I feel the hate.
Let me say something too. Ole Miss's like whole dynamic is like balanced offense, good air attack. Jackson Dart threw for 261. Brock Vandegrift threw for 243. That's basically like I can't even put it into like a legitimate like that makes no sense at all. Like that is like the poverty passing school and then like this echelon kind of passing school, and they're literally equal in this. And this is at Ole Miss at Oxford. Ole Miss just looked flat the whole time. Like, no heart in that game whatsoever. Jackson Dart's out there just kind of, like, flinging it around, kind of missing it, kind of going honestly, out, and then just kind of sulking over on the bench.
It's arrogance.
It's arrogance.
Totally arrogance.
It's drinking the Kool-Aid. It's the rat poison.
It is the rat poison.
And
yeah.
this is the thing about when you play these teams. And I think Georgia did the same thing when they played Kentucky, too, to be honest with you. I think they were like, this is Kentucky, whatever. We're going to figure it out. We're going to win. And then all of a sudden, they come out flat. They're in a dogfight. Kentucky's a physical team, at least, you know, on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, when you think about it, they held Georgia to, 13 and Ole Miss to 17? That's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
And so, now, thankfully, Kentucky's offense is terrible, or else they'd probably be leading the SEC right now because they can't score.
No.
Stoops this time, I think he listened into our episode.
Probably. That's
heard
probably
us calling him a coward and was like, oh my God, they better not put the hate shades on. And now the hate shades are on.
The hate shades are on for.
But you know what? Real
Stoops,
quick, you can take them off. You can take them off because Stoops had an opportunity. It was fourth down. It was almost the exact same thing as Georgia. He went for it. They converted. They win that game. And you know what? I'm glad Kentucky won that game. Do I like Kentucky? No. But do I like Ole Miss? No. Did I have Ole Miss making the playoff? Yes. Do I think they will? Yes. But I don't like it. It's a pathetic game. It's an embarrassing game for them. And credit to Kentucky. Like, I'm not going to sit here and just say that, like, Ole Miss just didn't show up. But I really do think that's what it is. I think that this is just such a strange game that really doesn't have any excuse. I mean, their leading rusher, like even these rushing, like Dart's passing stats suck, but their rushing stats. Parrish is the only ball carrier besides Matt Jones. I don't even know who that is. Parrish 13 carries, 62 yards, averaging 4.8, long 17. So it just wasn't there. It just wasn't happening, and the fact that you have Brock Vandegrift coming in and hitting Dane Key for 8 passes for 105 yards and a touchdown is ridiculous. Ole Miss, you got to get it figured out, or else.
You know what? Honestly, maybe don't schedule a bunch of cupcakes for your first 4 games next time, because you don't get better that way. You just don't good job. You beat Furman 76-0. And listen, I drank the Kool-Aid, but
I drank the Kool-Aid too. But honestly,
it's not prove it week, but you got to prove it.
The thing is I think that the Kool-Aid should have been drank.
It should have been drank.
That's the thing.
I agree.
It should have been drank. I don't regret drinking it. It's just like, then you just stopped serving it to me. Then you just left me high and dry on a hot summer day, dude. And I'm sitting out there with my cup. And Tennessee is putting water in it, dude.
No. So much water.
Oh, it's Tennessee. Kentucky. Words are hard sometimes. But you know what I mean, dude. It's ridiculous. And Ole Miss, figure it out.
Figure it out. Go prove it. I still believe in you, Ole Miss. I do still believe in you. I still love you. And I still,
We'll see you in the playoff.
We'll see you in the playoff. We better see you in the playoff. If we don't see you in the playoff, Ole Miss,
then the hate shades are going on hard. The hate shades are
going on hard. We've got something for you, Ole Miss. You don't want that. Lane, get it fixed.
Let's talk about something real quick. Friday night game. I watched this live on the television. I was at this place that had a big jumbotron with a bunch of people who were all betting on this Miami Virginia Tech game. The ending play. Virginia Tech, they chuck it up there. They're down by 4. They need a touchdown. They have to have it. Walk me through what we saw.
Well, and you talked about watching it on a large screen. I had to watch it on my phone. I was at a concert, and had to pull out the phone. You know,
What
me and my
concert?
friend.
Oh,
It's at
shout
the
out.
Woolly. Shout out the Woolly.
Shout out the Woolly.
Shout out the Woolly. Had to pull out the phone. Me and my friend had to catch it at the end. Obviously, couldn't miss that because, it's a close game. Virginia Tech throws it up, and someone catches it. Who catches it? Not really sure in the moment. Nobody really knows. And 15 minutes go by, and guess what? Nobody knows after those 15 minutes either. So it's pandemonium. Did Virginia Tech win the game? Did Miami win the game? Who knows? Is it a pick for Miami, who's up 38-34 at the time? Or did Virginia Tech just pull off the most unbelievable Hail Mary? You go on Twitter, and some people say, if you can't tell yet, it's not indisputable evidence. It has to stand as called as a touchdown. Or, other people are saying, no, obviously not a touchdown. There's disagreement. But either way, this is why we love college football. Moments like that.
Yep.
That Ryan Williams.
It's exactly
Ryan
what I
Williams
thought
moment,
too when I watched that.
It's insane.
I mean, the place that I was at too is a big bar outside, and people it's pandemonium because you got guys like, oh, Virginia Tech, and I'm just sitting there watching the ball come out on slow-mo replay, watching 8 dudes. It hit 8 dudes like a pinball machine, and I'm sitting there like, what is going on right now? And I'm talking to my buddy, dude, what do you think it is? What do you think? I go, I don't know. They don't pay me money to make those decisions. But when you see a ball flying around like that, I was like, they're going to call that incomplete, or they're going to call it a Miami pick, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I don't see how they're going to give that to Virginia Tech. And I was right. It does suck, though, that, that is the play that won a team and lost a team a game. It sucks, but I think the ACC made the right decision. I do. And the final ruling on it was because the Miami player was out of bounds and it touched him. Apparently, that's automatically an incomplete pass. But does that scare you for Miami a little bit?
So I was going to bring that up because we both also had Miami going winning the
Miami
ACC.
was losing that game.
They were
for
losing that game.
And
And shout out Cam Ward for, putting the team on his back, basically.
Literally.
He's having a phenomenal season. Very nonchalant way, too. But, yeah, it was like, oh, my God. Throughout most of the game, I was like, wow, Miami's really just going to lose this.
Mm-hmm.
And
we're going to be
But at least Utah's going to win tomorrow. Obviously, that didn't happen.
Ridiculous.
But, yeah. So, I don't know. I agree with you on the call and the decision there. I just think it sucks for Virginia Tech, obviously. I also think, I think that moment kind of overshadowed what was some pretty terrible clock management on that drive by Virginia Tech. But it is what it is. You got into that position, you threw the ball, someone caught it. It was just, and that's what happens.
Yeah. And then moving forward, Virginia Tech's weird because they lose to they lose to Vanderbilt, and then they almost beat Miami, and so you're like, okay, was that a fluke game against Vanderbilt? Are they decent, or what's going on with them? I don't know. It's Virginia Tech. I don't know. Does it worry me about Miami a tad? A tad. I'm not gonna lie to you. But then you look at Miami's schedule, and you're like, what do I have to worry about? Cal? No. At Louisville? Yes. I think you do have to worry about that game a little bit. But who did Louisville just lose to?
Notre Dame.
And how do we feel about Notre Dame?
The hater shades are on. Let's just say that.
Let's just say that. I don't need to say anything else.
No.
These shades are on right now because I said the word Notre Dame. Don't make the playoff. I won't be a happy camper. But then Florida State, easy win. Duke, easy win. At Georgia Tech, might actually give you some trouble there because Georgia Tech is just for some reason.
But should win.
You should win that game. Wake Forest and then Syracuse. These are all games you should win. I think they'll get in stride. I think they'll figure it out. And you have Miami going to California for an Atlantic Coastal Conference game.
Wow.
Explain that to me. Can't
do it.
Can't do it.
Doesn't make sense.
All right. Real quick, last part of our rundown right here. G5 team.
Yeah.
G5 teams are in the playoffs this season, and now we've got all this confusion because it was like, I said Northern Illinois, then they lose. Who was your original G5 team? Tulane. Oh. The hate shades are on when we talk about
shades are on
when we talk about the green wave.
Oh, yeah.
But now I think both of our G5 teams are just roped. I don't think either of them have a way. Maybe. So who do you think it's going to be now?
Man, who even knows at this point? I think you got I think Boise State can make a good argument. You look at Boise State so far, their one loss is to an Oregon team that they almost beat, by the way,
for real.
a 37-34 game. And we're going to touch on Ashton Jeanty in a second. But, yeah, I think Boise State has, I guess, as good of a shot as any of the other G5 teams to make the playoff. And I think they have a good narrative, too, by the way, which I know shouldn't matter in theory, but I don't know. If Ashton Jeanty is sitting there in New York for the Heisman ceremony, and Boise State is at least good enough to be in consideration for that spot, and won the Mountain West, then yeah, I could see it.
Yeah, I could definitely see them sneaking in. I'm trying to think of the other team that people are high on right now. I can't get the Vegas odds to pull up on the thing, whatever. But I think Boise State has got a good shot at it. Are you looking at the rest of their schedule right now? Or you're looking at the Tulane?
I looked at the Tulane, which, by the way, super easy schedule. And I mean, if we're being honest, my original predictions I said they'd lose to Kansas State and Oklahoma, which they did. But I'm so off Tulane that I'm not even gonna, try to make an argument for them here.
This is what I was going to talk about. Boise State plays UNLV, who's basically the other G5
That's
favorite
a huge game
at this point. Right now, those teams are both top 25 teams. That's on October 25th. That'll be interesting. Boise State will come off of a bye week before they go to UNLV. I just think that they're going to figure it out and get it done. Like you said, they almost beat Oregon. It was early season Oregon, but Ashton Jeanty, there's something to be said about a running back that can just dominate. We've seen it in the past with Heisman Trophy candidate running backs. Those are legit people. And when you're carrying the ball for an average of 10 yards per touch, that's insane. 4 touchdowns when they destroyed Washington State. And Washington State's not terrible at all. It's just watching Boise State play is pretty fun. And I think that Boise State, I like Boise State there. I think they're going to beat UNLV too.
We agree.
Yeah. All right. I think that's all we got for the rundown now for our closing segment. Segment. So for our final segment today, we're just going to real quick talk about who we think could, should, maybe, probably, will, won't, maybe, who knows, be the Heisman Trophy winner. Now, obviously, it's week 5, week 6 at this point. It's early. It's super early. But obviously, there are some names that stick out. And as long as these guys stay healthy, I think that there's a legit shot. So, Eitan, I want to hear from you first and foremost. Who do you think is going to be who's your favorite, and then who's probably your second favorite right now?
So the two guys I want to talk about, and I'll talk about my number 2 guy right now first, is Ashton Jeanty, who we just brought up. And by the way, I think it's really the two guys I bring up will, as of right now, are kind of the only 2 guys that should be in the conversation, at least to me. Ashton Jeanty, through 4 games, 845 yards and 13 touchdowns on, like you said, over 10 yards per carry, which is just bonkers video game numbers. It's insane what he's doing, and he's leading this Boise State team that, again, we both think is going to end up being, or at least has a great shot to be the team that represents the G5 in the playoff. So Ashton Jeanty, shout out to you because you've been balling. But the guy that I think right now has to be the lead in the Heisman, it's the guy I think is the best player in the country, and that's Travis Hunter. Just week in, week out, his impact on both sides of the ball. I mean, that interception he had this past week against UCF, was just guarding multiple different people, multiple areas of the field, is just insane instinct and feel for the game. Yeah. And then when you talk about what he's doing at receiver, I could not believe this when I saw it. He has 46 receptions. 46 receptions for a guy that plays corner as well is ridiculous. I mean,
for half 1,000.
Yeah, for half 1,000. And, we were just talking about Ryan Williams earlier. And obviously, Ryan Williams is a 17-year-old freshman, but he's only got 16 receptions, just to put in perspective. We saw what he did. But they're just, this team is leaning on Travis Hunter like no team is leaning on anyone, except maybe Boise State and Jeanty, I guess. Yeah. But, Travis Hunter is everything for Colorado right now, and they're 4-1. So we talked about the Big 12 and how insane it is, and he's the main reason they're in the second spot in that conference right now. So
I have a word for the Heisman Trophy real quick. I know that this isn't Thursday and this isn't our complaint courtroom time and all of that. I've always kind of struggled with what the Heisman Trophy actually is. Is it the best player in the country? Is it the most impactful player for a team? Is it the most valuable player? What? They leave it vague, and I think that that's nice because it allows other positions to get the opportunity. But really, it's like, you don't know. It's like, because at the beginning of the season, everyone goes, they watch Cam Ward play 3 games, and they go, this is our Heisman Trophy winner. This is going to be our favorite. Like, okay, cool. I can see that because he's going to probably end up throwing for 10 billion yards against the ACC and running around everybody and making it look like a piece of cake. But then you watch Jalen Milroe play in Alabama, and like we talked about earlier in this episode, put up unbelievable numbers, and in my opinion, is the reason they win that game 100%. So then you say, okay, that guy played way better teams than Cam Ward will play, and then will continue to play better games throughout the season. So if he's playing better teams and putting up good numbers, well, then he should win it. But I think that you don't live under a rock. Like, Travis Hunter is the best football player in college football, and he brings more value to that team than any other player, in my opinion, in the country. But he's not a quarterback, so he's not going to put up this stat line. And then you have Jeanty, who's running for insane numbers and is also basically the backbone of Boise State. So I have a little bit of a little about like what the Heisman Trophy really means, because it's so hard to look at quarterback Milroe, quarterback Cam Ward, running back, and then a two-way athlete and say, you win it. It's hard to choose one out of those. With all that being said, I think Travis Hunter is the best college football player. I think that he's arguably one of the best college football players ever, even though he's played on some bad teams.
Not his fault.
It's not his fault. I mean, he's just so good. But I actually feel like I think Milroe's going to win it. I think he's going to win it. I think it's going to go Milroe, Jeanty, Hunter, Ward. That's what I think the list is going to be at the end of the season. And that's if they all stay healthy, which I hope they do. They're incredible athletes, and they deserve a healthy season during their Heisman campaign. But I think that Jalen Milroe, what he showed Saturday night against Georgia, and I think if he continues that up, like, how do you not give it to him?
Yeah.
How would you give it to Jeanty over that? I don't know. And then if Hunter puts up a crazy season but drops a couple games in the weird Big 12, then I don't know what to say to it. So you got any thoughts about any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think Travis Hunter, I think if something holds him back, it'll be the team success. But in terms of positional value, or the positional value of the Heisman, where quarterback will generally win it, a quarterback will generally win most major football awards. I mean, the MVP in the NFL is basically just a quarterback award. Yeah. Then you have the Offensive Player of the Year for the other guys. I think what separates Hunter is the fact that he plays both ways, and he's so good at both of them, and he's on a team that's covered in the national media the way Colorado is, with a coach like Dion and a quarterback like Shedeur, and they're just relevant. They're in the weekly news cycle, the daily news cycle. And so I think he has all that going for him in a way that other guys who have been maybe the best player in the country on lesser teams, even if they're doing unique things, were. So yeah, I do think he has that going. I do think if I were to pick a quarterback, I do like Milroe as well. Projecting, if I'm projecting a quarterback to win it, I agree with Milroe, because I do think he's gonna have great numbers. He's put up great numbers already. He's gonna have signature moments that Cam Ward just won't have, because of the schedule that he plays and the conference that he plays in. And yeah, if Alabama goes undefeated, if Alabama wins the SEC with Milroe at quarterback, then I could very easily see him winning. I think Jeanty eventually drops out of the race, I think Jeanty eventually drops out of the top two. I do think it'll end up being Hunter and Milroe, but yeah, that's kind of how I see it going.
Give me those glasses real quick as I say my closing remarks. Everybody at the beginning of the season was like, Jackson Dart is going to be a Heisman Trophy favorite. Look.
We're closing. All right. Okay. Close up.
It's Ole Miss. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Even if they go undefeated in the season, it's not going to happen. Why? Because it's Ole Miss. I don't even have much more to even say about it than that. I just like, it just makes me so mad watching a team be like, oh, let's padlock his stats or pad his stats up and have him throw for 78 touchdowns against Furman. And then when he comes and plays Kentucky, he outpasses Brock Vandegrift by like 18 yards. Not cool. All you analysts people out there that were like, oh, this is going to be the guy. Bro, I had Ole Miss, I think, going, if not perfect in the regular season, then near perfect in the regular season. It's just their brand of football is not a Heisman Trophy kind of thing. And Jackson Dart is a great player. He's not an amazing player. No, and I think that the whole country can agree with that. And when you have guys like Milroe, Cam Ward, Gene T, Travis Hunter, like, that name doesn't even get in that conversation. No, and that's why I said earlier that I'm just kind of glad that Kentucky just beat you guys, because it would make me even more mad if Ole Miss finds a way to scrape that win against Kentucky out, and then you still have the Dart conversation of him being like an elite quarterback, Heisman, whatever. No chance, not going to happen. So yeah, I just had to ramble about that a little bit because I still feel like I left some of my Ole Miss hate off the table. But
Ole Miss, I still believe in you. We got it. Come on, Ole Miss.
You're gonna make the playoff.
Just at least make the playoff.
Your ceiling is where it should be now, though.
Don't make me look that stupid. Just make the playoff, please.
All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Tuesday's episode. We will catch you with an actual episode this Friday, unless another hurricane comes through, which I heard there's one cooking up in the Gulf of Mexico.
Allegedly.
Shout out Kip Lewis. Let's just rip 2 or 3 shout outs each. Shout out Kip Lewis. Shout out the ACC officiating.
Wow. Shout out.
And you know what? Shout out Mark Stoops.
Wow. All right, I'm not going to shout out Mark Stoops, but I will shout out Bama, who, as a program, I'm not shouting out Bama. Shout out Kalen DeBoer for making me look smart so far with my Bama playoff prediction, which I guess isn't, I didn't exactly go out on a limb there, say Bama's going to make the playoff, but I appreciate it. Way to go, way to play, way to win. Shout out, who do I want to shout out? Man, not a lot of positive things happening in the college football world for me, to be honest. Shout out Todd Golden.
Shout out Todd Golden.
Being a great men's basketball coach. And shout out to Ryan Williams. Now, can I shout out Bama twice? No, I can't. Shout out Jeremiah Smith for making the receiver. That's a whole nother conversation that we should have another day about the state of receivers in general in the football landscape. But for now, I'll just shout out Jeremiah Smith. That's all.
Shout out Luke Altmaier for forgetting how to play quarterback against Penn State.
Shout out Penn State. Oh, shout out Penn State.
No.
I have Penn State making the playoff, and so far, so good. Shout out to you, actually.
I don't like you, Penn State. Hey, I don't like you at all. I don't like watching you play football. It's boring.
Penn State.
Make it more fun.
Let's keep it rolling, Penn State.
Be cool.
We are.
All right, dude. All right. That's all we got. We'll talk about Penn State some other day.
We will.
Because I didn't talk about them on purpose today because I don't like them.
Probably when they make the playoff.
I don't like them. Fraud. They're frauds every year. Them and Notre Dame, frauds every year. Watch. If they make the playoff, out in the first round, simple as.
Oh, yeah. I agree with that.
Alrighty. We will catch you guys on Friday. Thank you so much for tuning in.